Welcome to the New Way of Life workshop of WCNA 31. My name is Mike W., and I am an addict. Hey. Can we please open the meeting with a moment of silence, followed by the Serenity Prayer? God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Anna has been asked to read What is the Narcotics Anonymous program?
Hi, my name is Anna and I'm an addict. What is Narcotics Anonymous program? NA is a non-profit fellowship or society of men and women for whom drugs have become a major problem. We are recovering addicts who meet regularly to help each other stay clean. This is a program of complete abstinence from all drugs. There is only one requirement for membership, the desire to stop using. We suggest that you keep an open mind and give yourself a break. Our program is a set of principles written so simply that we can follow them in our daily lives. The most important thing about them is that they work. There are no strings attached to NA. We are not affiliated with any other organizations. We have no initiation fees or dues, no pledges to sign, no promises to make to anyone. We are not connected with any political, religious, or law enforcement groups and are under no surveillance at any time. Anyone may join us regardless of age, race, sexual identity, creed, religion, or lack of religion. We are not interested in what or how much you used or who your connections were, what you've done in the past, how much or how little you have, but only in what you want to do about your problem and how we can help. The newcomer is the most important person at any meeting because we can only keep what we have by giving it away. We have learned from our group experience that those who keep coming to our meetings regularly stay clean.
And Sharon R. has been asked to read Why Are We Here?
Before coming to the fellowship of NA, we could not manage our own lives. We could not live and enjoy life as other people do. We had to have something different, and we thought we had found it in drugs. We placed their use ahead of the welfare of our families, our wives, husbands, and our children. We had to have drugs at all costs. We did many people great harm, but most of all, we harmed ourselves. Through our inability to accept personal responsibilities, we were actually creating our own problems. We seemed to be incapable of facing life on its own terms. Most of us realized that in our addiction, we were slowly committing suicide. But addiction is such a cunning enemy of life that we had lost the power to do anything about it. Many of us ended up in jail or sought help through medicine, religion, and psychiatry. None of these methods was sufficient for us. Our disease always resurfaced or continued to progress until in desperation we sought help from each other in Narcotics Anonymous. After coming to NA, we realized we were sick people. We suffered from a disease from which there is no known cure. It can, however, be arrested at some point, and recovery is then possible. Thank you for letting me read.
At this time, I'd like to introduce our speaker, Wallace R. from California.
I'm an addict. My name's Wallace. I thought there were more readings. So I kind of envisioned when I was asked to do the meeting, they told me, it's going to be a room with 500 people and you're going to be the only speaker. I'm thinking, my God, It's like half people here from my home group, my family, Albert's wife made him come while she's shopping, But yeah, I'm honored to speak here. You know, I wanted to just take a second to just a moment of silence. There's a friend of ours that's been sick, and she was supposed to come here, but due to her health, she couldn't make it. And I just wanted to take a moment of silence for her, and you know, and for the people that's you know, kind of going through it down in Louisiana as a direct of you know, some things that they can't control. Her name is Jeanette Shea. Thank you. Yeah, the topic is a new way of life, and actually that's kind of easy for me to talk to. I mean, you know, look where we are. I mean, we're in Hawaii, you know. Actually, in the bathroom when I did this, I said I'm gonna open up with aloha. But I've seen a lot of people here that you know, that friends over the years that I've met, and people that's in my life today, and it's you know, we just kind of look at each other and go, we're in Hawaii, you know, like dope things in Hawaii, you know, and I mean, this is just a, you know, a direct result of you know, being willing to, you know, to do something different. You know, we were having breakfast earlier. So I thought I'd kind of get a feel for, it was about 8 of us at breakfast, and I was asking people, you know, just what a new way of life meant to them. And you know, to every one of them, it was kind of a different thing. But, you know, the central theme was, you know, our willingness to take a risk to try something, you know, different, you know. I mean, there's no question that this thing starts with, you know, with getting clean and you know, and learning how to stay clean on a daily basis. At some point in time, I was introduced to a sponsor and steps, and I just think for me, you know, that's what the recovery is about. Recovery is kind of about change, you know, and I don't, you know, I mean, I'm not one of these people that minimizes the you know, us staying clean a day at a time, because I mean, without that, you know, I'm not even available to change. So, and I mean, there's not a day go by that you know, that I have the opportunity to cop. I can go cop every day. You know, I mean, that's still, you know, that can still be an option for me if I choose to take it. You know, so I'm not one of these people that think I'm at a point where it's like, you know, I never think about using it. You know, I'm beyond that. You know, when we were riding along in Hawaii, I was kind of thinking. I went over. I said, they look like Hawaiian projects over there. You know, they just weren't tagged. You know. And that thought hasn't crossed my mind in some years. You know, it's been a while. And you know, I have, you know, so many other ways I've learned, you know, clean to self-destruct is that I only have to use drugs half the time, you know. But, we are, and when I say we, there was a group of us that came out here, and we're staying, in an area called Kailua. And we're staying in a house that it's like right on the water. I mean, walk out the house and it's like, we came out of here about 6-7 years ago. We had planned, a group of us, all in recovery. And this is the kind of quality problems that, you know, addicts have today. We had planned a trip to, I don't know, it was some part of Africa. I don't know, it was Kenya or somewhere. And the trip just got totally, you know, it went awry. And so as we had an opportunity to come here as an alternate, you know, and I didn't really want to come here, you know, and I wanted to go to the motherland. And so we had an opportunity to come here and stay in a house that someone just made available for us. And we came here, and I remember it was, because I've been talking to people like I've been to Hawaii a lot, you know. I said, so where you going, Big Island? You know, where you staying? You know. And I've been here once. We came here like 7 years ago, and we stayed for about 10 days. And when we got here, it was like late at night, and you know, this house that we were staying in, it was you know, it was closed up, and everybody was thinking this was a bad idea, you know. And we went to sleep, and we woke up the next morning, and the ocean woke us up, you know. And that's what we did the other morning. Cheryl and I got up like 6 in the morning and went down to the ocean, and we just took a walk and took some pictures and watched the sunrise. And sometimes I don't know how to describe that. It was almost like at that moment my life was perfect. It was almost like at that moment I knew why I was clean, and I knew why I was a member of this fellowship. There's no way in the world I'd be able to experience anything like that. When I'm using, I'm unavailable. When I'm using, I talk about Hawaii. Yeah, we're gonna go to Hawaii because number one, in order to come to Hawaii, man, I had to get take-homes from the methadone program, which I never got. I never got take-home because I always had, always turned in positives, Two, it took money, and I never had money from payday to payday. And, and then, hi Norma, how are you? Finished shopping? Good. And I just was never available for things like this. A big part of my, my getting clean, and I talk a lot about that, is that we're available to do things. We're available to come to places like it. It really amazes me how many people here that just traveled from, I got clean in Baltimore, so there's a lot of people here from Baltimore. There are 3 guys here that I went to high school with. I have like 2 of my best friends. We've been best friends for 40 years, and they are here, in Hawaii and in this fellowship, I mean, that was like those were like some real quality problems, What day are we going to get here? How many days are we going to take off from work? When are we going to go back? Are we going to stay at the hotel tonight, or are we going to stay down at the house on the water? And so this is definitely, Cheryl loves me. Thanks, Cheryl. So this new way of life actually began with, and I'm not sure that, as a matter of fact, I am sure, this is not something that I wanted. When I got clean, I mean, if I could have written the script, it would not resemble anything the way my life has been. When I came around, it wasn't because necessarily I wanted to, I didn't hate drugs. I stopped using because of the things I had to do to get the drugs and how I felt when the drugs was gone. If I could have solved that problem, I'd been fine. I'd be fine. And I had no idea that recovery would entail, a lot of the things that I've experienced since I've been clean. So I'm from Baltimore. That's where I was born. That's where I grew up. That's where I used, and it's also where I got clean. It's where I was introduced to Narcotics Anonymous. My best friend, who's on, who's staying with us. He took me to my first NA meeting. And I remember him coming by the house, and he had a couple of IPs, a joint, and a beer. And I said to him, I started reading, and I said, I don't think you're supposed to be doing that, man. And he took me to my first NA meeting. And there were probably about 9 people at that meeting, and one person in that meeting was nodding. One guy in there was high. I watched him the whole meeting. I have no idea what the message was, who spoke. And when I left, you know what I said? I said, they're using, because that's what I did. The way I've always looked at things is there could be a lot of positive things going on, but I always focused on, the negative. I could have 1 million people that love me, and if there's one person that says anything about me, that's the person I focus on, and I don't do that today. Today I can, I'm a lot more available to receive love and be the recipient of, some real good stuff today, and not always have to fight that, So yeah, I got clean in Baltimore. That's where I spent my almost my first half of my recovery there. And, about 12 years ago, I moved out here to LA. My using, My using like ain't all that interesting. You know, I mean, I was pretty pathetic. You know, I always talk about how I backed out the bank. You know what I mean? And you know, with the guns in my hand and one bullet hit me. No. I was backing out my mother's house with a TV set. That was me. You know, I always kind of took advantage of the people that were like real easy victims, and those were usually people that loved me. You know. So I don't really have a real tough guy story, and I'm a mama's boy, you know. It ain't got to be my biological mama, you know, just take care of me, you know. And I'm an only child, and I grew up in a household with, you know, with a mother and a father, you know. You know, the neighborhood I came out of, I mean, there was a lot of using, you know, and you know, and I've always been a follower, and I just, you know, initially, I mean, I enjoyed it. You know how it is. You know, you go to the party and, you know, and it's on, you know, and, you know, somewhere down the road it becomes a problem. And, I mean, there was no Narcotics Anonymous. There was nothing. Dope fiends in my neighborhood used and went to prison or died. And that was pretty much it. There was really no middle of the road. And so when I was introduced to this, I really didn't realize the scope of the problem. You know, I didn't realize, you know, just what I'd really gotten myself into. You know, I just knew I'd gotten to that point. And I guess my bottom was things had gotten so bad in my life until I was thinking one day about ending my life. I thought that, you know, you'd be better off ending your life and let your family cash in the insurance policy. And just the fact that I thought about that blew me away. You know, the fact that that was an option blew me away, you know. And, you know, because I'm not a person that did a lot of, you know, that did a lot of time. And, you know, so I didn't have those kind of consequences. I think I spent like 60 days in jail one time. And I was getting ready to write my memoirs. You know, I was going to write a book, you know. And I saw a couple of people in my neighborhood. When you saw a person that had pretty much, you know, picked up some weight and had some clean clothes on and was well groomed and all, you knew what they'd been. They were in, you know, what joint you been in, how much time you do, because we knew that nobody managed their lives like that. Usually, when we saw that kind of image, it was usually somebody that had been locked up, that had been down. Somebody else has been managing your life, you know. So when I came around NA, it was really about me learning how to grow up. You know, I was 35 years old, and I didn't know a whole lot about living. I'm talking about real living. You know, I knew how to unjam a set of tools with extension cord. You know, of course, that didn't get me a whole lot of jobs out there. You know, I knew how to manipulate my way into getting shot money, you know. But what I had a wife, and I was a father, and I didn't feel like a father, you know. And, but I never talked about that, you know. I never talked about that. So, I actually learned about being a father around these rooms, you know. I've actually learned how to talk about my feelings around these rooms. You know, I kind of come from a household where you don't talk a lot about your feelings, you know. As a matter of fact, we were always discouraged from talking about how you feel. Shut up, boy, you know. Sit down and eat, you know. And I came around here and I kind of learned how to grow up. So I've been, I got clean in November of 1984, BC. That was before crack. I was going to tell you all a lie. My sponsor just walked in. I was going to put some pistols in my story. My sponsor walked in. Guns always meant to me. This is what a gun meant to me. Oh my God, I got something I can sell to buy some drugs. That's all pistols and guns and anything of value ever meant to me. You know, if it had value, it always ended up in the cooker. You know, guns, houses, jewelry, anything of value, you know, always ended up in the cooker, you know. So I came around here with a lot of old ideas about what a man is, a lot of old ideas. And it's always been, for me, a risk to try something new, because a lot of times that's not always the popular thing, to do. And I think what we do around here a lot of times is really the road less traveled, So it wasn't about really being hip, slick, and cool. I remember I had a friend of mine in Atlanta who used to always say, that, when I came around I was slick, But he used to always say, but my L was missing. So I didn't have no L when I came around here, and having to come around here and to develop some, just some living skills, some living skills. I guess if I knew what recovery entailed when I came around here, because they don't tell you all that, They tell you shit like there ain't no must. Yeah, there ain't no must, And I found out later on, well, if you want to change and if you want to stay clean, there are. There are some musts, Because I kind of thought it was like a free fall. I can come around and do what the hell I want and I'll stay clean. You ain't got to work no steps. You ain't got to get a sponsor. You don't have to do anything different. You don't have to change everything. The area I came from, they used to always say, the only thing you have to change is everything, And I guess if I really knew that when I came around, I don't know if I would stay. So I know God meets us at the level of our needs and have me that just, right where I need to be, They used to always say that too. They say, you're right where you need to be, man. They used to add another line too. They would say, for the amount of work that you've done. I never liked that part. I was like, yeah, I'm right where I'm supposed to be. And it does, it does. It takes work, and I think that's what the is where the change takes place. I'm the person. I love the benefits, but I don't necessarily want to do the work, I always say I like the car, I don't like the car note, I like the house. I don't like the mortgage, I want to reap the benefits, but I don't really want to have to do the work. And I find that, this is life. Life is about having to do. They don't like front you no recovery around here. Front me some joy, man. I'll do the work later. And it's about doing the work first, and sometimes not even realizing that I'm benefiting from it at the time that it happens. So there's been a lot of serendipitous stuff around here where there's been like hidden blessings, and I don't even know they're blessings. I don't even know the blessings. I used to hear people come in and talk about going back and thanking the judge for locking them up. I couldn't even comprehend that, And later on, I understood that, if I hadn't gone through that, I wouldn't be here, If I hadn't gone through that, if I hadn't experienced that, I would not be here. I wouldn't be here in Hawaii right now, experiencing this new way of life, And it is new, The other thing I found out too is how familiar I can be with that old way of life and my resistance to change, because I come around here and I think a lot of that old stuff is still working. I still think I think I call them survival skills. We thought that survival skill BS, and, my resistance to change has been probably the most painful part of my recovery. Not doing the work, but my resistance to doing it, because I always got a reason. I'm different. I'm not like you, I'm not like you, and I came around here and I raised my hand. I said, I need help. And people started saying, well, if you want some help, this is what we do. We attend meetings regularly. Meetings every day. I got to get a job, man. I can't go to meetings every day, So what we do here is we get phone numbers and call people that's in recovery. Well, I'm gonna call a total stranger and talk to them about what, My sponsor said, Wallace, you live in the question and not the answer. He said sometimes we have to take an act of faith and just, and actually dial those 7 numbers. Don't worry about what you're gonna talk about. And they keep it real simple around here. I guess that's why most of the slogans around here are just like, 3 words, because they know I can't comprehend a whole lot anyway. So they didn't make it real complicated for me, Keep coming back. Can you remember that, Wallace? Yeah, I think I can handle that, Easy does it. Get a sponsor with your crazy ass. And keeping that real simple, you know, keeping that real simple. You know, I mean, I've experienced so many rewards around here as a direct result of taking some direction a lot of times that I don't really want to take, you know. But the deal is, I trust this process, you know. And I think I trusted it from the day I walked in the rooms, because I really believe people were staying clean around. I really believe that, you know. I guess the toughest part was I came around, saw people that were clean, believed it, and I still chose to use, you know. Back east we have a thing that we call, and it's not a bad thing, it's actually, you know, it's cool. The people are called overnighters, and overnighters are like people that come around, hear the message, and stay, you know. And, you know, and they don't really struggle with that. They stay clean. You know, we just, that's not, you ain't gonna find it in the basic text, so don't quote me, you know, but it's like, you know, we call them overnighters, you know. And then there are people that come around like me that, you know, that struggle with this thing, you know. And, cause I really used like the first 30 days I came around, but I didn't tell anybody, you know. And I was getting keychains, and, you know, I was getting 30-day keychains and 60-day keychains. And then 30 days later, I would go home and kind of give myself that keychain because I'd earned it, you know. But you know what? I don't care what I struggle with around here. When I'm living a lie, it seems like it always comes up. You know, when I'm lying about my clean time, it seems like it's always the subject, you know. And I remember one day we were in the car, somebody said, do you know when you really start to grow around here? And I had opened my mouth, you know, and I said, when? They said, when you can say things that are detrimental to your image. And I thought, that's probably why I don't even really have an image around here, but I think I have one. That's why I'm lying about my time, you know. And I remember sharing at the group, and, you know, I mean, nobody put me out. You know, I even think they probably knew. You know, some people were like, yeah, okay, all right, you know, so, you know, we'll get to 30 days next week, you know. And there has never been anything around here that I've shared that has devastated this fellowship to the point where I haven't gotten any help, you know. The thing that has impeded my growth around here is my unwillingness to reach out, you know, my not wanting to share certain things, my wanting to keep a secret, you know, my thinking, and I hear this a lot, that if you really got to know me, man, you really want to deal with me, you know. And I always share this because I think it's important, because it's one of my truths, and that is, you know, we hear a lot about you know, the unhealthy relationships and what we don't know, and you know, and all the failed relationships that take place around here. But, and this is just my experience, is that some of the healthiest people that I know are in the rooms of Narcotics Anonymous. You know, some of the best mothers and fathers that I know are in the rooms of Narcotics Anonymous. You know, I mean, I'm looking out here right now, a couple of guys that I admire the relationships that they have with their wives and with their significant others. You know, and that's not to say that relationships are perfect, because I know that. You know, but I'm talking about people that hang in there and work on relationships and have been in there and have a real healthy relationship. You know, and I talk to these people, and these are the people that I draw from, because, you know, I really respect what they do around here. You know, as a matter of fact, if I thought this was just a fellowship of a bunch of unhealthy people that didn't know nothing about nothing, and relationships that always failed, I'd be a damn fool to stay around here. You know, if I thought this was a fellowship of men that didn't, you know how to be fathers, and they didn't know how to bond, and, you know, that you could not trust, I would not stay. I would not stay. You know, I love this fellowship. You know, and you know, and this is where I've basically grown up. So I've been clean as long as I've used. This year I was clean 20 years. I've used 20. I've been clean as long as I've used. You know, I can no longer. Here's my biggie. I just always say this when people would say, "Well, why are you still doing that?" I say, "Well, you know, I've been practicing the using longer than I've been practicing the new way of life. I can't use that anymore." You know, I've actually been practicing this new way of life for 20 years, a little more than 20 years. You know, I haven't made any great strides around here. I'm not one of these quantum leap kind of people. I haven't come around here one day and woke up and go, "Oh my, I met God today." You know, I've taken little tiny steps. That's me. You know, it's not the elephants, it's the ants in my life. You know. But I take little tiny steps around here, You know, I just have not made quantum, and people that have, you know, I'm not saying that doesn't happen. It just hadn't happened, and it hadn't been one of my realities. I have. This is one of the things, you know, people would say, you know, just show up and, you know, hit your meetings and get a sponsor and have a relationship with your sponsor and work staffs and give something back and work on yourself and your life will slowly fall in place, you know. Because the first time I understood that, I heard this story about this guy that had a puzzle of the universe. You know, it was like a couple 100-piece puzzle, and he was trying to put this thing together. And for the life of him, he could not put this thing together. You know, and he would he'd work on it for a while and get a few pieces together. And so he took a break to go get a drink of water. And his little 5-year-old son came in there and was fooling around. And when he came back, his 5-year-old son had put the puzzle together. And he said, "My God, I've been working on this thing for a long time. And I just haven't been able to do this. How'd you put this puzzle of the universe together?" He said, "Well, Dad, on the other side, there's a face of a man. And what I did was I found out when I put the man together, the universe fell in place." You know, and that's how this works for me. As long as I continue, to practice the principles of this program, my life slowly falls in place. My life slowly. I'm like 56 years old, and I'm still not sure what I want to be when I grow up. I moved out here about 12 years ago, and 10 years ago I took a risk and started working in a field that I absolutely know nothing about, and I'm still working in the same place. And 10 years later, I love what I do, but it wasn't like part of my plan. I mean, I lied to people about why I came out here. Years ago, people would say, "Why'd you move to California, man? Aren't you from Baltimore?" I said, "Yeah, well, I came out here because they have great job opportunities, and as a woman, I moved out here because of a woman." The woman was the reason I moved out here. My life was such that I just didn't have the courage to do anything about it, and that situation really presented a vehicle for me to do something about my life, to take one of those risks and kind of step out and do something differently, But a lot of things that's going on in my life today has not been planned, I met her as a direct result of service. I've been involved in service from the day that I've been clean, just doing something, because service is a part of what we do here. That whole giving back thing. Somebody was talking the other day in a meeting about that unconditional love, that unconditional service, doing something and not getting found out about, I'm just learning how to do that, I'm just learning how to do that. In my job in Baltimore in the home group, I used to mop the floor. Remember Green Mountain Avenue? Bert? I used to mop the floor there. And they gave me a key. They had like 40 keychains, one key, And so they gave me a key to this place. I go there, I open up, and I mop the floor, nobody there, And I'd always save one little spot, So when people started kind of coming into the meeting, then I'd get over there and I'd mop that spot so they could see, they could see that Wallace is the one that mops the floor around here, And I wouldn't say it. I'd do it kind of subtle, And good job, Wallace, But that commitment gave me really kind of a sense of purpose. I knew where I was going to be. I knew I'd get to a meeting. Somebody trusted me to open up it was like a place of business, and that was a big deal. So, service is one of the things that around here that I learned how to incorporate some of the other principles around here. And as a direct result, that's why I met Cheryl. I met Cheryl, in service, we were talking earlier, just controversial stuff about how we feel about how to do things around here, and when people use certain language, how do we tell them? Do we get in their face and tell them we don't talk like that, and do we actually pull them to the side? And it was funny just the way each person expressed that. But the bottom line was we talked about the need to keep the rooms safe for everybody, regardless of how they choose to express themselves. As a matter of fact, my first sponsor told me, he said, I'd like to have a tape of some of the stuff you were saying when you first came around here. Because sometimes we act like we come around here actually knowing how to really, deliver this message. And the deal is, none of us know nothing when we come around here. This is something that we learn to do, And that, to me, that's our responsibility to make sure that, I wish I could give people integrity, and I wish I could make you willing, I wish I could give you this thing, But, what we do around here is we share, and hopefully what we do is we give each other, hope. Hope is the only thing that, that I think that we can give each other around here, We take credit for a lot of other things around here, but, the deal is I can't get you clean. I can't make you use, I think I can contribute to both, But the deal is, it's the hope. And that's what our message is about, I'm one of these people, too, that, when we talk about clean time, I think clean time really has, it really matters in the sense that, if you have a year of clean time around here, you have a year of recovering experiences that you can share with people. If you've been around here 18 months, you have 18 months of recovering experiences you can share with people around here. If you have 10 years, you have 10 years of recovering experiences around here. And hopefully, the longer you've been around here, you have more recovering experiences to share around here. And, in my opinion, that is what this is all about. For me to come around and let you know that I've gotten through situations, that I've survived, deaths in my family, that I've dealt with rejection, that somebody cut me off on the freeway, and I didn't change my clean date, and I got through it. The thing that's given me courage to share about some of the things that has taken place in my life has been a direct result of hearing somebody else share it. I go, Albert shared about that. Maybe I'll take a risk. Let me see how they treat Albert, Check him, okay, they didn't put him out, okay. They still hugging him, Yeah, Norma still loves him, all right. I'll share it, Because that's what I do. I see how we respond to people that share things around here, and that's given me courage to, to share my stuff, I have three kids, and my oldest son, when he was born, I was using. I was dripping and running, and he was, I think, probably 2 days old before I first laid eyes on him. Totally unavailable. Hi, Michael. Come in. Sit down. You're late. Mike golfs with my son. Actually, he golfs about my son that I'm talking about. Who's like 32 now. But I was using when he came into this world, and I, totally unavailable. My daughter, who is at the time my wife was pregnant with her, I went to all these Lamaze classes. I'm using, but I'm trying, I'm going to the Lamaze class and I'm nodding out, I'm like, come on, man, dose me. I'm in the methadone line. I said, dose me, I got to go to the Lamaze class, man, And, so when my wife at the time went into delivery, I was there. And they said the magic word. They said it's going to be a little while before she actually delivers. And when my daughter was born, I was in a shooting gallery. I was in a shooting gallery when she came into this world. I have a younger son, and I was in recovery. I was coming to meetings, and I was staying clean. And I didn't go to the mom's classes or nothing. And the deal was when he was born, I was right there in the delivery room. You know, I watched him come into this world. You know, and it just reinforced that thing, man. Like, come on and show up around here and participate in your life, you know, in your recovery, and you'll be an active participant in your own life. You know. Yeah, my oldest son, about 3 years ago, it's been a little over 3 years ago, he wanted to come live with me because he was using, and I told him that he could not. I got some information from you guys. It's tough sometimes to apply that in your life, you know. But I told him, you know what, man, I'm not going to watch you self-destruct. If that's what you choose to do, there's nothing I can do about that. You know, I said, but if you want some help, I'm the first one in line. I'm the first person in line, you know. And later on, I got a call, and I don't think he just called me because I was his father. I think he called me because he knew about Narcotics Anonymous, and he knew that I'd been clean for a while, and he knew that I was in this process, you know. And it wasn't just some lip service that I would give him, you know. And bottom line, you know, just last month, my son took a 3-year kick, you know. He and Mike they golf every Sunday, you know. And I didn't do that. What I did was, when he came around here, I turned him over to you guys. You know, I didn't try to fix him, you know. I mean, I did want to, you know. Just a couple of things, you know. Didn't necessarily like his sponsor, you know, his guard, you know. Yeah. So I knew I had to get out of the way, you know. Cheryl and I actually have 5 kids between us, you know. And it's funny because we have very similar dynamics with our kids, you know. I have a daughter in her 5th year of college in Florida, and her son's in his junior year in college in Atlanta. You know, I got a son that's in recovery, you know, and she has a son that's in recovery as well, you know. And as a direct result of, you know, sometimes I'm gonna tell you, when I think life is, you know, like real laid back, and I'm going to kind of kick back and just kind of live off the laurels of some of the work I've done, you know. And recently, a year ago, you know, we got this house that we love, and, you know, it's on the hill, and we got like the, you know, stuff. We got stuff, you know. And, you know, the kids are out of the house and all, and we got, you know, it's kick back time, you know. And all of a sudden, we go to the door, and there's a 5-year-old. You know, and it's been a direct result of, you know, his parents being unavailable and us being available. And so we've been keeping, you know, our 5-year-old grandson, you know, and it's not something, I'm going to tell you the truth, you know, because Cheryl always, you know, it's not something that I want to do. I want to kick back, you know, I want to go in the jacuzzi, you know, I don't want to pick him up from school, you know. And the deal is, and I'm going to tell you, you know, when you talk about a new way of life, I come from households where, you know, the lights might go out at any time, and once they go out, they stay out for a while, you know. Nothing in the fridge, you know. The phones on the wall are just non-existent. They just don't work, you know. And that's because I don't pay bills. I buy drugs with my money. Yeah, that's what I do, you know. And I've gone from that to us having like really the healthiest and most stable environment for our grandson, you know. And we do it because we can and we're supposed to, you know. Not necessarily because I want to all the time, you know. My best friend called me. He called me and said, "So how's your grandson?" I said, "He's 5." They said, "Well, is he bad or anything?" I said, "No, man, he's just 5, man. You know, it's like perpetual motion, you know." Yeah, and I love him, you know, and I love him, you know. As a matter of fact, he's been at his mother's house for the you know, most of the summer, and when we go back, the day that we land in LAX, he's going to be coming in 2 hours later from Tennessee, and you know, so he'll be back home. you know. And every day Cheryl always asks me, do you miss him? I go, no, I don't miss him. But you know what? Last week I told her, I said, I kind of miss him, you know. Yeah, I kind of miss my stepping on toys and, you know, busting my butt. You know, and it's that part of showing up for life, you know. It's that part of showing up for life. I don't really know a whole lot more, you know, a whole lot more to say. I mean, I've had an opportunity to do you know, quite a bit of traveling since I've been clean. I know people. I've met people here that I know. I met a guy the other day who was from Australia, you know, and I know one guy in Australia that I met at the World Convention in D.C. in, what year was that? In '85, right? I met this one guy, and he came to Baltimore. He stayed for a while, and, you know, we were writing each other for a while, and then we got disconnected, you know. And about 6 years ago, I met him again here. Now, you know how big Australia is. I mean, that's a huge place. Whenever I meet anybody from Australia, I always say, hey, man, you know a guy named Max? They go, yeah, man, I know Max. You know. And this guy knew him, you know. And that's just kind of cool to know, you know, to know when you meet people from almost anywhere, you know, and you can kind of identify with somebody, not just somebody, but somebody that's, you know, that's in the process and somebody that's in this fellowship. And, you know, there's this thing that my first sponsor gave me when I first got clean. Because we used to always talk about whether we were chosen or whether I chose this way of life or whether God chose me, and we'd have these, you know, these real serious debates about how we got here, you know. And he gave me this thing, and it was called "If God Spoke to Narcotics Anonymous," you know. And it goes, if God spoke to NA, he would say, into your weak and feeble hands I have entrusted a power greater than estimate. To you have been given that which has been denied the most learned of my fellows, not to scientists or statesmen, not to wives or mothers, not even to priests and ministers have I given this gift of healing other addicts that I entrust to you. It must be used with caution. It comes with grave responsibilities. No day can be too long, no demands upon your time too urgent, no case too pitiful, no task too hard, no effort too great. It must be used with tolerance because I have restricted its membership to no particular race, creed, or denomination. Criticism you must expect. Success shall not always attend your efforts while working with other addicts. You must be prepared for adversity. For what men call adversity is the ladder you must use to ascend the rungs towards spiritual perfection. You are not selected because of your special talents. And be careful always, should success attend your efforts, not to ascribe to personal superiority, that which you can lay claim only by virtue of my gift. If I wanted learned men to accomplish this mission, it would have been given to the scientist or the physician. If I wanted scholars, there'll be many that would be willing to do the job, because talk is the easiest use of all the gifts with which I have endowed mankind. If I wanted brilliance, there'd be many more qualified than you. You were selected because you are the outcast of society. And your long experience as addicts has made or should make you humbly alert to the cries of distress of the lonely hearts of addicts everywhere. Forever remember your admission upon your profession to NA, namely that you are powerless, and it is only your willingness to turn your life over to my care that relief has come to you. Think not because you have been clean for 5 years or 10 years or 20 years that it is the result of your unaided efforts. That which has kept you clean will continue to do so, just as long as you follow this path that I have mapped out to you. Beware of the pride that comes from growth and insidious comparisons with other organizations whose success depends on money, property, and prestige. These things are not of your lot. Success of material organizations come from the pooling of joint assets. Yours from the mutual union of your non-assets. The motto of these organizations are, he profits most who serves best. Yours is, he profits best who seeks no profit. When they take their inventory, it is measured by what they have left. When you take your personal inventory, it is measured by what you have given. Thank you.
Wow. Let's thank Wallace for sharing with us.